The year is 1998. France win the World Cup and Zinedine Zidane becomes a national hero.
Zidane sur ce premier corner français place un coup de tête magistral et ouvre le score.
Mika Häkkinen wins the Formula 1 World Championship ahead of his main rival Michael Schumacher.
Mika Häkkinen on maailmanmestari kaudella 98. Schumacher joutuu keskeyttämään.
And on the 20th of February that same year, Great Britain would be given their first taste of a brand new sport known simply as robot fighting. Hosted by a motoring journalist and a children's TV presenter, BBC Two would introduce UK audiences to the weird and wonderful world of Robot Wars.
Over the years, we've seen behind-the-scenes documentaries on the making of blockbusters like Star Wars, Titanic, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Tonight, I'm less excited, quite considerably less than excited, to give you the making of Robot Wars. If there's not something decent on later when I'm walking.
Before this point, Robot Wars was a competition held in San Francisco and hosted by former Industrial Light and Magic employee Mark Thorpe. Unfortunately, since the end of the 1997 event, Robot Wars had been in a limbo due to a very ugly and long-winding legal battle between Thorpe and his business partner Steve Plotnicki of Profile Records. While Robot Wars in the USA was looking to die an ugly death, the sport in the UK looked to breathe new life into it. Back in 1994, Mentorn founder Tom Gutteridge was shown Robot Wars 1994 by a friend and thought the event was worth buying the rights to and making into a TV show. What followed was a pilot involving many of the top builders from the USA and their machines. The pilot was overseen by Mentorn employee Stephen Carsey and commentated by Dominic Diamond, who is best known as the presenter for the Channel 4 TV show Games Master. To learn more about the pilot, watch part 1 of the Robot Wars Retrospective. It was looking like the Robot Wars TV show was going to be a reality, but the show itself wouldn't materialise until 2.5 years after the pilot was filmed. Meetings between Mentor and executives at the BBC would take place until finally, sometime in 1997, the BBC gave Tom Gutteridge and Mentor approval to form the first series of Robot Wars. The ball was finally rolling. With the approval to film a series of Robot Wars, the BBC commissioned their visual effects department to create 4 house robots, most likely in reference to the house robot that paraded the arena during the inaugural US Robot Wars event. Being inspired by the TV show Gladiators, Chris Reynolds, Colin Tilley and others at the department had only a limited amount of time to work on what would become the most identifiable part of the TV series.
2 main features are the chainsaw here at the rear. At the back is more towards a bulldozer type of effect. We can use it for ramming or defending. In this sort of area we can have a large lever with either an ice pick.
And cleave all opponents in two with that sharpened steel axe.
It's got a petrol strimmer that's been modified to take an angle grinder blade. And on the front it'll have jaws and then the cut-off saw.
And dead metal with the pneumatic pincers and a steel cutting arm.
Another identifying factor of Robot Wars had to be the people who would ultimately host the TV show. As their main host, the BBC would end up hiring, get this, motoring journalist and Top Gear host, Jeremy Clarkson. No, this isn't a joke, this is absolutely real. For pit reporting duties, they hired former CBBC presenter and Tomorrow's World host, Philippa Forrester.
Everyone here on the team will be working to bring you the best science stories around, but we'll also be asking what they really mean to you and me.
And for commentary duties, Capital Goals football commentator Jonathan Pearce.
Oh my goodness me! He just kicks! He's punched a fan! Eric Cantona has jumped in and scissor kung fu kick a fan! Manchester United fans are coming across! I have never seen as disgraceful an incident as that in all my years in football!
A ragtag team of personalities that would, in theory, help give the show the extra push it needed. So, with the host sorted and the visual effects team working on the house robots, all that was left was the set.
The set was designed here, in London's Docklands, by a man named Steve Clark. Steve's vision for the arena was a metallic, industrial, scrapyard-like arena that felt both gritty and futuristic. So, naturally, he and a few crew members went to the nearest scrapyard to find props.
The reason we make a model is so that we can present our ideas in 3 dimensions, so the production team know what we're going to make for them.
We want bigger stuff that's more unusual shapes, like this.
Yeah, he'll just turn around and say, right, I want this. And then we just make up a lorry load.
A quantity of...
I mean, normally...
But the scrapyard in particular is used a lot in the film and television industry. They provide a lot of things for Star Wars and Judge Dredd, that type of movie.
Just looking for interesting shapes that we can use on the set. We can tie them to mesh panels and just get some nice sculptural shapes out of this salvage. That's good because it's lightweight. Huh? Heather, look at that.
But they want something that they can weigh properly, that they know what the weight is.
I don't think we need too many items much bigger than that.
No, it's kind of...
That's the scale of it.
Their findings were then sent here, Gate 6 in Seagull Lane. Believe me, I spent a lot of time trying to figure this out.
Among those to help with the production of the show would be their very experienced director, Stuart MacDonald. Stuart's CV before Robot Wars was extensive. QED, Tomorrow's World, Stars in Their Eyes, Doctor Who Dimensions in Time, and many more. Not only would he be providing the direction to the look and feel of the show, but his voice would become synonymous with catchphrases like 3, 2, 1, activate, cease, and much less catchy phrases like stop and deactivate robots. Producing the show would be Stephen Carsey, who we'd seen in the 1995 pilot. 4 weeks before the filming of the series, the applying contestants brought what they had done with their robots so far. Some of these contestants had heard about Robot Wars through the Mentorn website, which had been advertising the filming of the TV series as early as 1996, describing it as the competitive action of gladiators, the challenge of Crystal Maze, and the creative ingenuity of the Great Egg Race. Among those who came along for the quote-unquote audition were Rex Garrett, an inventor and former speedway rider, who had previously done work as a co-presenter for The Secret Life of Machines, and had designed and built the main character for the UK children's television show Brum. Peter Redmond, hailing from County Dublin, Rob Knight & Co. from Cambridge University, Mike Onslow, and many others. What they had brung along would be scrutinised by technical consultants Matt Irvine and Derek Foxwell, who, I'm happy to say, were very impressed with the robots that they had seen. Don't believe me? Here's them saying exactly that, verbatim.
We are very impressed with all the robots we've seen. With all the robots we've seen, yeah.
After 2 years of development from Stephen Carsey and the team, the show was finally starting to take shape. Not long after, the house robots had been finished, but not before making last-minute cosmetic touches.
In the morning in the studio, I still couldn't decide on what sergeant stripes looked like. I was asking loads of people what do American sergeant stripes look like, and nobody knew. So eventually we had a vague idea of what British sergeant stripes look like, so we put those on the stuff.
And with everything in place, on November 12th, 1997, Robot Wars would start filming the first UK series.
Please welcome your Commander-in-Chief, Jeremy Clarkson. Man may have tempered the spectre of nuclear evil, but tonight I have the unenviable task of reporting that warfare has been taken out of man's hands. We're now at the mercy of machines, and a battle the likes of which we've never seen before is about to begin. Outside the studio, women have lashed themselves to the railings. Britain is about to witness the birth of Robot Wars, which is all about robots fighting.
The format of the show was slightly different to what the US Robot Wars competitions were, and what the show would ultimately become in the future. The first 2 rounds were dedicated to what were called the Gauntlet and the Trials. The Gauntlet was an obstacle course type event with 3 routes the robots could go through, with the goal being to get to the end, or get as far as possible with the time allocated. The Trials were a selection of games that would vary from episode to episode. The games included were Sumo, British Bulldog, Football, Stock Car, Labyrinth, and Snooker. In both rounds, the lowest scoring or the lowest distance achieved of the competing robot would be eliminated, which would leave 4 robots left to fight it out in the arena round, which was your usual one-on-one combat scenario. The last robot standing at the end of each episode would be given a place in the grand final. Oh, I should really introduce the house robots, shouldn't I? Shunt! A big bully bulldozer bot which, let's be honest, none of us could tell which end was the front or the back, but I digress. This menacing monster has a pickaxe that could smash down at robots at a whopping 1 mile an hour. Terrifying. Matilda, the matriarch of mayhem, the bot bimbo. Matilda's tusk and her chainsaw tail is enough to give any competitor wet dreams for the next 30 years. Sergeant Bash, exaggerating the war in war crimes. Sergeant Bash's flamethrower is enough to scorch a fiery red mist so overpowering that Senator Joseph McCartney would be on your ass. And Dead Metal, you never saw this coming. Ha ha ha! Please laugh. Dead Metal's circular saw will have you quaking your boots like you just ran doom on a TI-88 calculator. You wouldn't be Einstein to run away from this bot lobster. You'd be E equals MC scared. Alright, I'm done. In this first series of Robot Wars, 36 contestants from all walks of life, schools, universities, some random back road in the middle of Shropshire, would stake their claim to try and be the UK Robot Wars champion, and cement their name in the annals of robot combat history. 6 heats separated them from a place in the grand final. So, let's get on with the summarising. In the first heat, we would be introduced to some all-time memorable teams, and also some teams we'll never see again. The former would be Richard Broad's Killertron, a pink robot with a double-edged pickaxe that shook the robot like a seesaw whenever it was activated. And Roadblock, built by members of the Bodmin Community College. For their A-level product, Hender Blewett, Peter Kinsey, and teacher Chris Kinsey made a robot based on, ironically enough, a roadblock, which used a road ahead closed sign donated to them by the local council. And of course, how could we ever forget the boys from Dublin and their polka-dotted legends, Nemesis. On the latter, Barry, Grunt and Shogun, even though we see Barry 2 series later. Weirdly enough, Mark Thorpe has a photo with Barry. Of all robots, why Barry? What was it about Barry? The first obstacle in the contestants' way was the Gauntlet. Finally, this was what 2 years of limbo had come to. Roadblock, taking on the Gauntlet.
For the first time in the history of Robot Wars, the Gauntlet is run. And out comes Roadblock. He does not want to be torched. In goes Matilda. Dead Metal is beaten. It's big Chris Kinsey, the tall blonde lad. And this is a good run here by Roadblock, and that's very fast.
Our main plan was to go over that bridge, actually. As we were steering onto it, we found a gap and went for it.
A great first run by Roadblock. Nemesis would also go through, and Grunt as well, whereas Killertron, Shogun, and especially Barry, struggled. Barry was out. Boo-hoo. But not before Jeremy Clarkson making a really weird sexist statement, which, you know, isn't too far away from Jeremy Clarkson.
Never mind. So it's back to embroidery now, is it?
Well, I think so.
Next up was the Sumo, the first of the Series 1 trials. The premise is simple. The contestant has to sumo wrestle with Shunt, The loser is the one who lasts the shortest amount of time. Dead easy to remember. Roadblock and Nemesis once again are the standout bots, as both of them managed to push Shunt off, while Killatron managed to stay the whole minute without being pushed off. Shogun didn't last very long, and Grunt just drove off within the first 5 seconds.
Activate. Matthew Dickinson has to survive 21.51 seconds with Grunt to go through, and he's not going to do it, is he? He's out already.
This seems weird. Why did Grunt suddenly drive off after doing so well in the gauntlet? Let me tell you about Loanerbots. What's a Loanerbot, you may ask? This is what a Loanerbot, according to the Robot Wars wiki, is. To fill up spaces in various Robot Wars competitions, Loanerbots were sometimes included in the lineup alongside regular competitor entries. A vast majority of these robots were built by technical crews working on the show, in most cases to provide a replacement robot for teams experiencing a shipping mishap or other circumstances preventing their originally entered machine from taking part. The Robot Wars staff originally named these robots as House Loanerbots. Grunt was built by technical consultant Derek Foxwell and driven by the son of Eric Dickinson, whom the latter had been in Robot Wars 1996 with WYSIWYG, which, spoiler alert, would be another Loanerbot. According to Oliver Steeples, who would enter the series of Robot Wars with Cunning Plan, but we'll get to that later, Loanerbots were prohibited from going any further than the trial stage, which is why Matthew Dickinson immediately threw Grunt out of the sumo ring at 1.6 times 10 to the minus 35 seconds. That's a plank length, in case you wanted to know that. Now, for the third and final round, the arena, the part of the show which most of the audience was waiting for. 2 semi-final matches would commence and then a final, the winner of which would go on to a 6-way grand final at the end of the series. First to rally for that place was Nemesis and Roadblock, the 2 most impressive bots of the series so far.
With only makeshift repairs, Nemesis takes on Roadblock in the semi-final.
And Roadblock will use that saw, activated by Hender Blewett. And Roadblock could choke on a furball. Nemesis being ripped to shreds at this moment in time. They need to get away from that saw. Oh, that could be a mistake by Roadblock. It's gone in with Matilda and the spikes, and it's impaled on the spikes. Matilda's saw! And that vicious tail! This could be a tale of 2 saws! Roadblock away! Now attacks Nemesis again! Gets underneath! The Nemesis boys all want to go into space and they're in the air! They're in the air! And they're on fire! Get the fire brigade! Aye, aye, you're in trouble! It could all be over for Nemesis shortly now!
And thus, a legend was born. Nemesis on fire. Surely this won't go on for many years.
Pretty in pink, Killatron takes on Shogun.
And Shogun running away at the moment. There's Yoda from Star Wars. I knew he was in that team. Killatron looking the more aggressive with the pickaxe. Shogun trying to evade, but it's got to get out of that space. This is not good driving at the moment. They don't seem to be able to avoid Killatron, who seems to be having something of a fit. Oh! Shogun is stuck on the grill! And Killatron comes in for the kill! Bash! And again! Oh! And the sergeant's lost its saw! Cease!
And finally, the first ever Heat Final, Roadblock versus Killatron.
The pickaxe against the circular saw, and the pickaxe gets in first. The old polka dots of Nemesis on Roadblock, a distant memory. But that scoop's so important again, getting in underneath Killatron. And the Trojan team befuddled at the news. And in comes the sergeant with the torch. The Roadblock boys controlling this final at the moment. And Killatron's on the run. It's piggyback time. They're in and underneath Killatron. It's only a question of time. They know it. Killatron will be in for the big flip. They're going to flip him. No, it's all over. Roadblock the winners.
This was a first in Robot Wars, as it was the first time a robot was turned up and over for a knockout in the UK series. Roadblock were the winners, and the first to cement themselves a place in the grand final. While filming for the most part was a success, there would be one particular incident that would become quite infamous within the hardcore Robot Wars community, becoming a topic of not only Robot Wars, but a topic of supposed lost media as well. On the second day of filming, Jeremy Clarkson's Lottery of Death nearly became a reality, as Dead Metal Saw flung off the robot at, according to Tom Gutteridge himself, 200 miles an hour, and hitting a stand in which Jeremy Clarkson was perched, embedding himself into a concrete wall. Filming was paused, and as they were playing the tape back, they had seen the blade had missed Clarkson's head by 2 inches. While most would have hoped that this was an on-off incident, we'd learn in time that there would be a few incidents involving health and safety that would shroud the history of Robot Wars. But that's not until later. With the first heat done, the second heat was upon us. And more incredibly familiar names to boot. Rex Garrett had arrived on the show with a robot named Recyclops. Why was it called that?
Because everything's recycled. Ah, you see?
It had a long tongue that would sport a front-hinged pneumatic flipper, the first of its kind in UK Robot Wars. Something that would become incredibly familiar to UK audiences. For good or for bad. Next up was the boffins at Cambridge University. And Mortis. What a beauty of a bot. And it sported a lethal axe that could come down on an opponent at more than 1 mile an hour. Finally! And of course, how could we forget the Dartford Girls Grammar School's first outing in Robot Wars. Detonator. Jesus Christ. Look at this thing. Rayra, I don't know what you see in this robot. I really don't. I also can't forget to mention Uglybot. I feel I have a moral duty to mention Uglybot. Like the last episode, the good bots did better than the crap bots. Recyclops and Leebot went through, Mortis nearly made it to the end zone but was pinned, rather surprisingly, by Shunt, with that non-existent axe. I know, but our first casualty was Uglybot, who was caught by Shunt and completely man-marked so effectively that Roy Keane would be saying that was his job. Uglybot was out. In the trials, the game was British Bulldog, a game that only translates well to Series 1 of Robot Wars, and nothing else. But this trial did have something of note, apart from Detonator's abysmal performance. Sorry, I spoiled the ending just to rip into Detonator.
And the boys from Jesus College, Cambridge are there already. That was stunning. Still Detonator at the start. Poor old David Crosby in pain. Recyclops against Matilda. Matilda interfering with Recyclops. Ugh, what a dreadful thought. And still Detonator right back at the start. David Crosby has had enough. He's gone. Now Scrapper making its move. Strangely backwards. And it's through backwards. Oh, well, strange, but through nonetheless. Now Leebot takes on Shunt, and Recyclops by the pyramid is in problems here. Leebot being pushed all over the place, but making steady progress anyway. For its team, watching back in the pits, and slowly, and surely, the Woodlouse is through. But look at Matilda there, stopping the progress of all Recyclops. Until then, it's flipped. Well, you got underneath Matilda and flipped her over. She will not be pleased. And back at the start, Detonator with so many problems.
Rex Garrett and Recyclops make history as the first competitor to successfully flip a house robot. Rex Garrett, as you'll see time and time again in this series, will make a thing out of killing the house robots. And that's why we love him. And, like the last episode, and every episode after that, the arena round was underway. Our first fight is Recyclops versus the Scrapper. I managed to go an entire episode so far without mentioning the Scrapper once. Good going for me. You'll understand why I haven't bothered to mention the Scrapper after watching this fight.
Don't go broadside on! Oh no, you shouldn't have done that! Broadside and the tongue came out!
Easy win for Recyclops. Nothing much to say there. Next, Mortis against Leebot. And once again, another iconic moment in Robot Wars.
Screw drill and ramming blades to cut and slice. And Mortis with that piercing Japanese blade. Oh, that's not too much of a weapon, is it really? Oh, and that is, look at that Japanese blade, thrusting down. Leebot, pepper pot, you could pour pepper out of that Leebot machine now. Look at the holes. Could he flip him over? If he does, it's all over. And it is all over.
What a classic. Mortis at its best. Everybody shits on this series, but there's so many iconic moments in the first 2 episodes. I can't fault it. You can't fault it. And now, the final. Recyclops versus Mortis. Will it be an all-time classic, or a stinker to be stuffed into the annals of robot combat folklore?
You may be thinking you already know which one's going to win, but here on Robot Wars, the lesson we've learned is that nothing is certain. Guys, what has happened to Mortis?
We've broken the main shaft that drives our axe, so we no longer have our main weapon. We're going to actually try and modify the vehicle so we can use it as a battering ram instead.
The robots fail to immobilise each other. They don't want to go into that patrol area. Matilda awaits. She can't come out of that patrol area very far. She'll have to go back in any second now, but she's chasing down on Recyclops. There you see her going back into the patrol area, and Mortis is impaled on a spike, and that's poor driving, that is poor steering, and that'll count against the boys from Cambridge. Chris Salisbury driving, and it's taking damage there from Matilda. Points against Mortis. In comes Recyclops with a good attack. I think the axe blade is bent there as well. More damage then, and more points against them, but Mortis free now to see if they can retaliate. Gets in underneath Recyclops. Good defensive work by Recyclops, holding on there. Rex Garrow managing to spin away. Good work by him. Again, Recyclops aggressively goes at Mortis. Out comes the tongue. Good aggression once again. Mortis retaliates underneath and is now driving into another patrol area. That'll count against him again. Poor steering. And it's stuck on the side bars and needs to get out, and he's negative here. Recyclops is trying to get away, but not Mortis, and Mortis is taking more damage.
Cease. It's happened. It's finally happened. A judge's decision. But who was the winner?
Okay, the judges have made their decision using the 4 criteria: damage, control, style, and aggression. And their decision is Recyclops!
Well, that's hugely popular in the pits. Look, and they're the real experts, the Roboteers.
Recyclops, after Mortis lost its axe before the fight, and after quote-unquote taking damage from Shunt and Matilda, won the fight, and planted itself a place in the grand final. The Mortis gang were obviously unhappy with this decision, so much so that you can see Rob Knight mouth the words, "That's bullshit," before the episode ends. 4 more episodes of Series 1 would air weekly on Friday evenings, where we'd see the likes of Robot the Bruce, built by George Francis and Mick Cutter, successfully make their way to the final. George Francis is extremely important to mention, but we'll explain why later. Just as important is the robot Body Hammer, built by Robin Herrick. Next to mention is Cunning Gland, built by Oliver Steeples, who would win its featherweight-only heat with its speed and low ground clearance. And, last but not least, Tracy, a school team that included comedian Joe Thomas. I'm not joking, here he is in the crowd. Before we continue with the final, I just want to mention one thing. Psycho Sprout. That is all. So, with the finalists named, there's only one thing left to do. The grand final. The coup de grace. The culmination of 3 years of television development hell.
3, 2, and Robot the Bruce and 1. Tracy from tonight. Activate. And this for the title, the first ever UK Robot Wars champion. Aggressive style already, especially from Tracy spiking Recyclops, and that allows Roadblock to come in underneath. There's the extended tongue, but Recyclops can't flip Tracy over at this moment in time. Tracy comes back. There's Body Hammer in the spotlight briefly, and running away, Cunning Plan. Needs to get back into the action and be aggressive, and it is there because the judges will mark for aggression, and Tracy's up on Cunning Plan, and both of them are out, immobilised. 4 left, Body Hammer and Recyclops, and Robert the Bruce there to the left-hand side, and the dangerous Roadblock, who's persisting in this attack on Recyclops, the most dangerous attacking robot otherwise in the field, but up on inside Recyclops. Down it comes, the tongue takes a fearful bashing. Roadblock still pressurising, and Body Hammer thrusts into Robot the Bruce. Recyclops on its side, not yet down. Robot the Bruce trying to get involved. Rex Garrard needs to get his tongue back in every sense of the word. Recyclops up near picture. There's the chain off Recyclops, and that attacking by Roadblock has paid off. Recyclops is out. They're down to 3. Body Hammer. Roadblock behind it, and there's Robot the Bruce up on inside and goes as well, and that leaves 2. The Roadblock team of students from Bodmin against the team of nuclear engineers and Body Hammer. Here's Roadblock closing in on the far more experienced engineering team, getting in underneath. It's over. It goes to the judges. And the arena on its feet, a standing ovation.
All right, quieten down, everybody. Quieten down. We have a decision. A unanimous one from the judges that the winner, the British Robot Wars champion, Series 1, is Roadblock! You did it, guys! You did it! There it is, the trophy. And a very, very well-earned one, if I may be so bold.
Roadblock had become the first ever UK Robot Wars champions. Hender Blewett, Peter Kinsey and Chris Kinsey had staked their claim and had won the biggest prize. Bodmin Community College housed the best of British. Roadblock, the champions of Series 1. Robot Wars started airing in the UK on the 15th of February 1998, and it became quite obvious that the show was a runaway success, accumulating a total of 4.5 million viewers, partly due to it slotting very comfortably after a double bill of The Simpsons on BBC Two at 6:25 p.m. By the midway point of 1998, Robot Wars had cemented itself as a British institution, and the show had earned itself a rerun on BBC Two during the autumn of that same year. The timing of the rerun was not a coincidence, however, because Robot Wars had been commissioned for a second series by the BBC, and by then, the world of robot combat had planted itself into the consciousness of any tinkerer of electronics, and its immediate success became prevalent as the next series would have more than double the participants of the first. Will Robot Wars continue its run of success into its sophomore incarnation? Only time will tell. The English public is begging for more, so when's the next episode of Robot Wars? See you next time.
Building robots is dangerous and shouldn't be attempted without great care. Ha ha ha, I goofed you. I'm not doing that. Hey, if you watched the video, thank you very much for watching. If you didn't, and you just went to the end, thank you anyway, I guess. Below will be all of the sources I used for this video, all of the clips I used, all of the information that you can find about everything that I've talked about today. And yeah, sorry it took so long. The next one's going to take probably as long because I'm fucking finicky as hell when it comes to shit like this. But whatever. It's my burden to deal with. Yeah, if you liked it, hit the subscribe button, smash that motherfucking like button, hit the bell, do all that good shit. And yeah, a little carbonation, and I'll see you next time.